Hello, my badass friends. Welcome to this episode of the Badassladies Club. I'm Laurie, here with my friend Jessica.
Hey, guys.
We're so excited to bring you some time today with the fabulous Keri Davis, who we're so stoked about talking to. But before we get into Keri, Jessica's going to tell us about our Badass of the Week.
I'm so excited about this week's Badass of the Week because I've never met this person, but I'm only slightly obsessed with him. His name is Geno Chapman. Geno is from Honolulu, but he's based out of Los Angeles. He is a master hair cutter, extremely talented. He won NAHA 2013 in Contemporary Classics. He was nominated in 2014 for the same category. He won the Southwest Hairstyling Award for Master Haircutting in 2015. He was a global guest artist with Aveda for 18 years. So I've seen him work on many different occasions through different hair shows we used to go to. But his newest thing is that he has created his own men's hair care line called Gray Label. And I thought that the mission was so cool. And their mission is to have proceeds of each product to go to charity so we as humans can help humans thrive, not just survive. And so that really spoke to us. Yeah. So we would be honored to have Geno on. Geno, if you're listening, this is your invitation. I'm going to be stalking you a little bit and reaching out
Get
prepared to come on for us.
So yay, Geno.
Yay, Geno.
He's going to be a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah.
So Keri Davis, how the heck are you, lady?
I'm good.
Good.
And I mean, Geno, it's one of my favorites.
He's so fun.
He is fun.
Okay.
He's so funny.
He's hilarious. And my mom met him, my mom who's 83, and she just thought his name was Dino. So now I just call him Dino. And he knows what's up.
Okay,
I love
same.
it.
This is his new nickname from now on.
From my mom.
Love it. You know, it's funny that you bring up your mom because a big part of what we wanted to talk about today was just the birth of Gila Rut and that is really at its core a family business. So tell us a little bit about Gila Rut for people that are living under a rock and maybe haven't heard of it, what it is and what's going on.
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, we own salons in San Diego. So Gila Rut is my mom and I opened our first Gila Rut location in 1992. And, we've just been going. We've been going. We're going on 29 years this year.
Wow. Congratulations. Yeah. That's so awesome.
So California specifically had a really tumultuous COVID experience, lots of shutdowns, a lot of time not at work. Like we speak about it a lot on our podcast that we were closed for 10 weeks and we lost our minds through that period. Mm-hmm. You had to contend with a lot more time out of work and be the anchor and support to the team that was freaking out the way that we were freaking out, like here, just
but
for a lot
three
longer.
times,
but 3 times as much. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So you guys are back at work now.
Yeah.
How are things being back in the salon?
Well, they're good. I mean, I think that, the first time we closed, it was the first time for everybody, right? So everybody was freaking out together. Everybody was spending all the time that we were closed, at least us owners. I feel like our staff were on little vacations, but as owners, we were just like, oh my God, how do I have to rebuild my business and rebuild the practices? And should it look like? And what should the systems be? And what does all this mean? And how are we going to get it done in 2 weeks, which is what we initially thought.
Right. That was cute, right? 2 weeks.
Yeah. So I feel like we went through this closing and then we reopened and we were on track with most of the country. And so we were all going through this together. So then when we closed the second time, it was easier, right? Because we had done it once. It was harder emotionally, but it was easier in the way that we didn't have to spend necessarily all of our time redeveloping how to open a COVID-friendly, if you will, business. And so we just started deep diving on other business practices that just had maybe been put off to the side that needed to be revamped or new practices we wanted to integrate just in general. And we, this time, unlike the first time, because we were so busy, really had a focus on staying connected with our team in a lot of different ways, because by the third shutdown, that was even harder, because people just were like, oh yeah, we've been through this before. And they just started drifting, and I started drifting, and I'm like, somebody tether me to the ground. Like, what are we ever going to open again? So each one had like a weird nuance unto itself. And I had to focus, and my business partner and I, we had to focus on something different with each one during each one of the shutdowns. So, I mean, like I said before we even went on air, I mean, pivot has been my biggest word. Yeah. And I'm an optimist. I'm an eternal optimist, that I know that no matter what's happening right here, right now, things are going to end up for their higher good. And the hard part of trying to practice spirituality and letting go and all of those things is that the higher good may not be what you think is best.
Sadly.
Yeah. The higher good is the higher good. And it doesn't take into consideration your feelings, but it's trusting that life's process has done you right so far, right? And so we have to kind of trust and believe and do what you can in front of you, and let go of the rest. And so that really was my internal kind of spiritual work as we were on this yo-yo train.
Wow. I love that. Laurie and I have talked at length multiple times about, even during our shutdown here in Texas, we were watching you on social media, and your optimism, the way you led your team through that first shutdown when you were shut down with us, and all these shutdowns since then, has been so inspirational, motivational, and just really speaks to our heart as leaders in our business, with our salon at William Edge. And I mean, we were looking to you, like, through Facebook and everything, being like,
what's Keri doing?
What is Keri doing? How is she handling this? And so, when we're thinking of badasses in this industry, I mean, you were an obvious choice because you've led with your heart, and that just speaks so much to us. So we're curious, what has been your COVID silver lining?
Everybody's got one.
Do they?
I mean, Keri's like, I don't know.
Hang on a minute. That wasn't in the pre-question sheet I got. No, I'm just kidding. My God, I mean, there have been a lot. There have been a lot of silver linings, I feel like, and I also believe there will be more will be revealed as we continue to operate our business in a new way in many areas of our business. But I think the biggest one is more on a personal level. I mean, I was able to spend a lot of time with my family, and, my son was out of school. He's now back in school, but he was virtual. So I was able to spend a lot of time with him and my wife. And so on a personal level, we just have never had that time, and it causes you to just slow down a little bit and, appreciate just kind of what's in front of you. Sometimes we're moving so quickly that we don't have an opportunity to just stop and just appreciate what's right in front of us. So on a personal level, I think that was a silver lining. That was awesome. On a business level, it was one of those things, one of my silver linings is one of those things that some people might feel is hard. And I find it a little bit refreshing that the business weeds out what doesn't serve it. And I really had to lean into that this business will look exactly the way it's supposed to look, no matter how I feel about it. So it's really that same mindset that I have tried to embrace. And if people weren't ready to come back, that was okay. Mm-hmm. And if people were ready to come back, that was great. And if people decided they weren't coming back at all, okay, we will continue to move forward. And didn't let anything rock me. I mean, as you guys know, and we'll probably bring up, and we closed a location during COVID.
Yeah.
So we closed our most recent, which is it was 8.5 years old. We just never reopened it after the second shutdown. And that was another thing that, and financially, I mean, we definitely had to bring money in to close it. But it was another thing for me that was like, it's not serving the bigger part of the company.
Yeah.
And sometimes doing a check on one's pride that, we should be open and we should stay open, and how's this going to look? And, the ego gets caught up in a lot of the decisions that we need to make. But I think that stepping into a leadership position means stepping into your courage sometimes and having blind faith and saying, if this isn't serving me, just like maybe employees or business or whatever, it's not serving the bigger piece, the bigger, higher good, then we need to be able to let go. And we don't know what that's going to look like even maybe on the other side, but we know that it's not necessarily serving us. So, that's just been, it's not the easiest way to think, because we want to think we have so much control, but we really don't have control over anything other than how we respond and react to things, right? Like we don't have any control over whether people come back, whether we have a walkout, whether we have, those things are going to be what they're going to be. What we have control over is what we're going to do ourselves about it.
I love that. I think that overwhelmingly the biggest lesson that came out of COVID for me, I know, was just that you don't have control, in that it was all an illusion in the first place. It just
100.
brought it to the surface and put it in our faces that, this is outside of it. I also love the idea of like, whatever is going to happen is going to happen. It's not, and I know that my own process has been so much one of not trying to make things happen, but just allowing things to be what they are, and to not judge it so much. And that is, that's some straight wisdom that you got to work on, like I still struggle with that daily. And so it's really, really awesome to hear that on a scale as large as business closing locations, that those little tweaks that we're all trying to learn on a, shallow level sometimes translate to giant things like businesses, and so that's really an awesome way to look at that for sure. I feel like William Edge and Gila Rut are like sister, companies, siblings. Yeah. Because there's so much about the culture at Gila Rut that reminds me of the culture at William Edge and vice versa. And I think it's partially because you and Billy are tight, and I know had a lot of trainings and, like formative years together, and that really speaks so much to me, based on how I can see your team feels about you and how you feel about them. And so all of that is it's like a mirror, and feels good. How do you create those kinds of like heart-centered connections with your team while also making it about business, work, growing, like sometimes those things are conflicting. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
I don't see them as conflicting personally. I see them as just a human way to move forward. I think that we have to have business goals. The business has to stay open, right? Then there are certain systems and things that we have to do every single day in order for a business to stay open. And inside that framework, so here's the framework. The framework is, we have a business. Not only does it have to stay open, it has to be sustainable. It has to be profitable in order to sustain. So inside that framework that we all know needs to happen, how can I talk about we as my business partner and I talk to this about my team, is be as transparent as we possibly can when things are looking shitty. I don't like showing up and talking about that, but I feel like it's my job to stand up and say, God, this is feeling really hard. I know we'll get through it, but these are the things that are going on. This is how I see us kind of moving from this. Let's all brainstorm or come together and, figure out a way. So I'm as transparent about that as I am about the great things that happened and the painful things that happened. And I think that it's been a learning curve for me over the years, and it comes with age, I think, and working on yourself as a human, that people relate to someone who also just feels human and like that they're one of them. And so when I can be more vulnerable and I can just stand and that I don't know everything and that there is still a lot more for me to learn and that I don't really know what's going to happen, but what I know right now is this is what we're doing, people can relate to that. And it's a more approachable way, I feel, to lead. And I have built deeper relationships with my team by allowing that vulnerability to hang out when it comes.
Love that. Yeah. So looking back, through building your business, creating this culture in your salon, and all the developments you've done over your career, what has been your biggest lesson through the beauty industry?
Like as a leader or just in the industry? What specific are you kind of?
I would focus on leadership for sure, just because I feel like that's what people look to you for.
My biggest lesson. I think there's two things that come up. One is the transparency piece. Is that has not always been my way, but that has become a very important way for people to trust where you are and where we're going. Instead of I'm also a believer that if I'm not in front of the story called my business, and I'm not leading that story will get led somewhere because and not told by me. And I want to be the author. And I want to be the storyteller of what's happening under my roof. And so, it's been making a commitment to be in front of what my partner and I call staying in front of the narrative with our team, whether we're doing Facebook Lives every week with them, even just talking about what's happening with COVID or, tightening things up that maybe we need to take a look at, or like, it's always about education and being in front of whatever story. So I think that's a really big piece. And then that piece that we talked about earlier, that what do we really have control over?
Yeah.
Is we can do the best that we can do with as much integrity and respect of other people and staying true to your vision. And you got to let go of the rest. Like, you have to trust that people want to follow that, and the people that want to be a part of that are going to align with you. And the people that aren't supposed to be with you long term, they're going to drop off and find their own way. And it all needs to be okay. It took me a long time to get there. A lot of anxiety, a lot of heartache. And I'm not saying sometimes that doesn't come up in a rush when I am faced with that type of situation. But for the most part, I can't expend my energy on stuff like that.
I love it. So it's interesting because as COVID came around last year, it's when I started to connect to some of your other pursuits, things like Beauty Backbone and then your 7 Steps program that we spoke about a little bit earlier. So talk to us about what is Beauty Backbone and where the idea and concept came from when you wanted to put that together.
Well, it's kind of, I never intended to have an educational company. Because I have these businesses and they take up a lot of time. But another huge part of what I do in my career is I travel and I'm a business speaker, right? And so, in non-COVID years, I would probably be gone twice a month somewhere across the country doing business speaking. And so this is how it would go. And this has been going on for the past 25 years. So this is how it would go. I'd go to some seminar or a show or something that I spoke at, and I would talk about maybe what we're doing, any systems or strategies or whatever. And then following that, whatever, if it's in salon or at a hair show or whatever, I would get inundated with emails. Can you send me that system that you do? Can you send me your education program? Can you send me this? So I would forward on the emails to my business partner and to the managers of our locations. And I'm like, hey, can you find the paperwork on this or, systems on this and send it to me. And then I would send it off. And Carla said to me, look, enough is enough. We need to have everything in one place. So when people need sources and people need specific things that you're out there talking about, we're not all running around like a chicken with our head cut off and trying to find everything and sending them like our makeshift shit.
Yep.
So I said, you know what, you're right. And at the same time, one of our educators had developed an amazing education program in the Salon. He got moved to lead educator. He was in charge of our education department. And he previously was an educator at Paul Mitchell School. And he created this great curriculum for the Salon. And it was more structured than we ever had, very check and balance, a very lean, an easy way for people that came out of school to go through our course and get onto the floor. And it was just more organized than we ever had it. And so I remember being at Serious Business one year and I was showing some of my friends this system. I was like bragging about it. I'm like, oh my God, look what John made and this and that. And so my friends started saying, we need a program like that. I'm like, oh my God. So can we hire John to come out and develop this program, for us? And so we were on the flight back home after that Serious Business. And I was like, John was so excited. He was like, oh, I'm finally done with the program. I said, I don't think we're done with the program. We need to rewrite it for a general audience because this is specific to our company. So all of this started happening kind of at the same time. And so we created a program in Salon, virtual in Salon education platform that's a train the trainer program that teaches an educator how to teach. Because one thing that keeps happening is if our educators keep leaving and moving on, we have to keep training another educator on how to teach. So if the Salon had a program that a hairdresser could go through, a 6-week program to learn how to be an educator and everything that salon wanted to teach, this many haircuts, this many colors, learn how to deal with these benchmarks, then why wouldn't they want that? So we created a program called Train You that salons can buy, and they could, and it's like a in-salon education program in a box on how to train the trainer. And then at the same time, we decided to take that and just roll it into Carla's request, which was, let's put everything in one place. And so it ended up just being this hub called Beauty Backbone, which, helps salons with in-salon education. So it's education, our pillars, education, culture, which, as you know, I'm super passionate about. Finance, I'm super passionate about that. Operations, and leadership. So those are like the 5 things that we focus on in Beauty Backbone, which is really essentially what it takes to run a business. And so that's kind of a long story, how the company came about. And then under the Beauty Backbone umbrella, we create great systems like you mentioned, like our 7 Steps to Salon Profit, which is a virtual program that I developed before COVID hit, because I thought, I don't really know that I want to keep traveling so much. I want to be able to help people online. And why shouldn't I do that? That launched in January of 2020.
And little did you know.
Little did I know, right? And so March we shut down, and that program took off because people aren't going anywhere, and it's really reasonably priced. And so they're able to, I work with them every week. We do lives every week. They upload homework every week. And so I really walk them through how to create profit and sustainability for their business. And I love it. So I don't know how much travel is in my future. There'll be some, but this is a great way to work with people. And I think that's kind of another silver lining from COVID.
Absolutely. And yeah, just the universe is magical in the way that it lines things up like that. Yeah. Sometimes I always remind myself, better than I could have worked it out in my own head if I would just get out of the way and let it come.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So I have to say, Keri, your personal style is top notch.
Agreed.
Like, we always love your hair and your clothes and just like your vibe and everything. And so, Laurie and I have talked about how, you know, in developing Badassladies Club, and we're developing our own brand, like people that we look to whose brands are just on point. So what advice do you have for artists who are creating their own personal brand?
I don't even think about like what my own personal brand looks like, to be honest with you. I am an advocate, and I'm sure if people follow me one week to the next, that like I love changing my hair.
Yes.
My hair is different than when I talked to you last week.
Yeah.
And I just love changing. I love changing my look, and I love that this industry allows us the opportunity to have different hair every week, whether we want to add hair or take hair off or change the color. And I think if we as leaders, okay, as I'll start with leaders, want our team to follow suit, we have to step into that arena and we have to lead by example. And I mean, here I am today. I mean, it's technically my day off, but this is how I would go out and go to the grocery store. And so I just take pride in how I look. And we all know when we step it up and we feel like we look better, we have a better attitude. We feel better about ourselves.
Yeah, people feel it.
Yeah.
I don't wear a lot of makeup, but if I even put a little on, I feel better than when I don't have any on. It just, even if it's just the bare minimum. And then it goes, the same thing really goes to show with my team. If my team's not changing, their clients aren't changing. If the clients aren't changing, they're not inspired to talk to their friends about the changes they're having done with their hair. So it is like this domino effect that we have to be the change makers. We have to lead by example. I mean, I see some people that have the same hair year over year over year. And it's like, come on now, you know, you can do this.
Yeah.
You know, it's just hair. It's an accessory. It comes and it goes. And so I think it's really important that you can stay in the same branded style inside. And I talk a lot about framework, but continue to change inside that framework. I think it's critical in the industry that we're in to change it up.
Yeah.
Love that. So who would you say are some of your style icons, past and present?
Well, if you guys know Ginger Boyle,
Oh my God.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, iconic, right?
Yeah.
She's one of my besties. And she amazes me. I mean, I look at her and she keeps me inspired on like, what should I be doing, from her glasses to her giant chunky tennis shoes to her, you know, the other day we were on a doing like a Zoom cocktail hour and I'm like, is that pink in your hair? She's like, oh yeah, I got like my money piece, you know, right here. And I'm like, really? And so when I changed my hair yesterday, I texted her, I'm like, I'm going a little apricot, but kind of pink, you know? And so I like to look for funky. I like funky for sure. And then I say, wow, that's funky. And then how can I alter it so it feels comfortable in my skin? You know, because you have to feel really good. People go, I can't wear my hair that short. I can't.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, well, if you feel good in it and you're confident in it, you can actually wear anything. So I don't know. I don't really have like a lot of people, but for sure, Ginger is one of my peeps. And I have to say my mom, who I told you before is 83. She'll be 84 this March. She is so cute. You guys. I'm 5'9". I'm a pretty tall girl, right? She's 5'2". Okay. So she's like, and she has short gray pixie, like salt and pepper, a lot of white pixie, and these like big old glasses. And she's so cute. Like I took her to get her vaccine a couple of weeks ago, you know, and we're in line. And if not 50 people walked by, love your glasses, love your look, and I'm like, oh, I want to be like you.
Mom.
You know? She just rocks it. She's so cute.
I find that to be
that's
so
sweet.
true of style in general is when you just are authentically embracing what you have going on, that people notice that and give you that feedback. I love that your mom came up. My mom and I have been accused of having similar hair and like direction at times. I felt good about the mullet, and then I found this picture of her with a mullet in the 80s, and I was like, okay,
Like, okay, well,
maybe
know
I'm
where I got
copying my
that
mom a
from.
little bit. It's good.
Well, and you know what? That was like that when I grew my hair out. I grew all the color out, and my hair is like a really beautiful silver salt and pepper. And the way it's placed is like the pepper is super chunky, so it's
Nice.
not just like sporadic. And the white is like snow white, right? And I grew it out, and I got a million compliments on my hair being natural. And I kept looking in the mirror, and I'm like, I look too much like my mom at this point.
Yeah.
Color.
Yeah, you're like,
People are like, you're coloring that hair? And
maybe
I said,
later.
I gotta color it. Bleach it and color it gray.
There you go.
Color.
right? Right.
Yeah.
I love it. Is there a hairstyle or a color that you have not tried that you are excited to get into?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm here right now. And then my son's being bar mitzvahed in August. Okay. So I have like 5.5 months. So as far as I'll ever look out is like for him, what
Like,
do you want me to look like?
what's the
for
next
your
thing
bar mitzvah?
that we're
Like,
doing?
You're
Yeah.
going to be comfortable, because sometimes if I'm like rocking the dreads or, you know what I mean? He's
Yeah.
like, really, mom? You know? So I'm like, how do you want me to look? And he told me yesterday, remember how you looked, whatever, he stated some date. And I was like, when my hair was kind of blonde and just kind of like normal.
Normal.
He's all, I was like, we'll work on that. So
We can
How
get there.
funny.
So on the topic of moms, one of the reasons that I'm like hooked onto your social media is my mom is gay. And so I remember a time back when I was young. I'm 42 now, you know, like when my mom came out, it was a big iffy thing to have a gay mom in the mid 80s, you know, into the early 90s even. And there was a lot of things socially, definitely judicially, you know, like women in Oklahoma can have their children taken away for being gay. And so I think it's so interesting how much that's changed just in my lifetime, and that you and your family are so precious and are, you know, just it radiates from what I see just through a social media lens. That I feel like there's been a lot of progress already, but I'm passionate about continuing to move the needle forward, because it's not like that in all parts of the country, definitely not in Oklahoma anymore. And so what are your inspirations as far as moving those needles forward with the gay community?
I mean, you know, being gay is not like a choice, right? It's like it's who you are. Usually, it's what you're born into, right? And so, I've never really had an issue with it. I've never hidden it. It's just I just show up, and I'm very fortunate that I work in an industry that it's just a non-talker, right? It's like a whatever. But what I am passionate about is people voting, okay, for people that continue to allow progress and don't stop progress. And that's gay rights, that's LGBTQ rights, that's women's rights, that's Black rights, that's Latino rights. That's just like equality is really where my passion is. So I do talk about that freely. And if you don't like it, get off my page. And so it's, I don't know, I think by showing up and being who you are, and hopefully you're respectful to people, even if you don't agree, you know, hopefully you're able to be transparent and be your authentic self and show the beauty and joy that a lot of some progress may happen just by people watching and saying, oh, wow, I didn't realize that could look like that. Or does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And see that. I think, like I said, that's part of one of the reasons why that's so inspirational to me, because I remember a day where I thought there's no way that 2 women or 2 men could raise a family successfully without all of this negative feedback. So it's really inspiring to see that, the way that you guys have worked, or just the way that you're living, like that. It's inspiring to me to see that. It's International Women's Month this month.
International
March
Women's
1st just hit, and women's rights have, been on a lot of shaky ground over the last several years.
Oh, yeah.
We are excited this month to focus on inspirational women in history and women's rights in general, just as far as the Badassladies Club platform is concerned. Do you have women icons, people in women's history that you feel like are important or that are a good idea for us to focus on this month? Shine a light on?
I will tell you that, the first person that always comes to my mind is Oprah Winfrey. And she's just like, I feel like has been like my soul sister my whole life. I would make sure I was off work at 4 so I could go home and like watch her show. And not just because of the topic, because of how she presented herself and who she showed up to be, and all of her transparency and all of her strength and in all of her vulnerability. I love that about her. And I have loved that about her. I love watching Kamala. I think that she is like, wow. This is just such a big year. And so many people to celebrate, because so much progress has been made, even in the face of the resistance.
Yeah.
Because progress does move forward, whether people like it or not. It may not move forward as quickly because of the resistance, but it will continue to move. And we have to keep standing up for it and keep talking about it. So I love that you guys are doing your piece on it.
Yeah, Kamala has definitely been a huge,
was a big one for me, because I have cousins who are mixed, and I just love that my 13-year-old cousins get to watch a woman of color step into a role like that. And, the inauguration day, or, this whole journey, but especially inauguration day, like I was emotional.
Oh my gosh.
I cried all day.
I know. Same. Because to me, it didn't matter. Yes, the politics are important. Policy is important, but I was just so focused on gratitude of having a woman in color, like step into that role, and just being this beacon of light for little girls, especially little girls of color everywhere, was just so huge for me. And I'm so excited that that's a thing now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I kept my son home. We all stayed home that day from work and school. And I think that, yes, for sure, little girls, but also boys.
Yeah.
So your son, how did he feel about it?
That the boys see that too, that it is like that, because it's not necessarily women not treating women equally, although that does happen, but the majority is men not treating women as equals, right? It's not women saying don't pay us more.
Right.
It's men saying don't pay us more, right? We're not saying don't pay ourselves more. And so I think it's important to be able to raise our children with those same values. And that's how each generation continues to progress.
I love that. I love that you kept him home and that you guys all took the day off to do that. I did not see any of it live. I watched it all that evening. And I guess because of social media, you see clips of things. And so I had seen pieces and bits of it throughout the day. So I didn't expect to be very emotional when I watched the replay of it. But when I was a sobbing mess. It was,
I know,
really a magic moment just to have a woman in office. And she's not just any woman, man. Like, she is amazing. And I've learned so much just about her over the last 6 months or so, trying to be more educated. Like, it's just such a great role model for women everywhere. So politics in general are something that we have straddled a really delicate line with Badassladies Club. I think mainly just because sometimes it's hard to talk about and be professional about it and try and be inclusive. And so, we were curious, how do you balance your personal political views with your professional out there in front of everybody? Or do you balance them? Or, how do you straddle that line?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you have to, right?
Yeah.
So again, it's like, what's the narrative? And I will tell you that the narrative in our company, and I mean, how could it not be, for forever since we were born, has been equality, is equal rights for all people. And so if there's a group that needs to be stood up for, we will stand up for, because we believe in equal rights for all people. I have had people leave my company, and I don't know about clients, but not want to work for us because of the umbrella they have felt they've been put under. And that's okay with me too, because you have to stand for something or you fall for everything. I mean, that's kind of what goes on in my mind. Now, when I say stand for it, I'm not out there like a political beast making, political statements, but I do take a stand for equality. So if we're at the Black Lives Matter March, or we're at the Pride March, or we're at, celebrating National Women's Month, or we're celebrating, Black History Month, or we celebrate those because we celebrate, the strength and the pride and the equality of all people. And so that is the stand we take. Doesn't really, to me, I don't go into the political arena with it, but our stand is always equality.
I love that.
And whatever that means for the political landscape, it falls wherever it lands. It could be in an Obama era. It could be in a Trump era. It could be in a Biden era. Wherever it lands, but we don't take the throttle off of what that stand is.
Yeah.
I think that's part of what makes people connect to your company and your branding too, though, is that when you can stand up for things in a respectful, and equality centered way, that resonates with people.
Yeah.
I love that outlook. That is helpful.
Yeah. Well, because being in Texas, where we are a red state, we don't want to alienate someone who could potentially be a really awesome listener. So we want to be inclusive and open. But I love that's something that we're never going to stray away from, is equality for all.
Totally.
So thank you for that.
It's kind of like find your passion. That's our passion. Our passion is that everybody should have equal rights. It just doesn't matter the color, the gender, the orientation. That has always been our stand. So, I mean, again, like I said, sometimes it might feel or sound political, but it isn't. It is just about the people.
Right. Well, and I also think that there's so much of like a reactionary culture anymore, where when we were talking with Deborah Neal, she really got me grounded in this idea that, like, what do I think versus what do I believe? Mm-hmm. And that sometimes, like, believing something just for the sake of believing it is hurting your process, and to really let go of what you believe and get grounded in what you think. And I had never thought of it that way, but it's really been helpful.
Well, our beliefs are not always ours.
Yeah.
They're inherited. Right? Yeah. So you inherit a belief system just growing up, by virtue of growing up, and your familial beliefs, then you inherit them as your own. And as we get older, it's our responsibility to interrogate our belief system to see if it really belongs to us. Mm-hmm. There have been things I've had to disown. I'm like, that doesn't belong to me, but it was given to me.
Yeah.
And I'm respectfully going to set it over here, because it just doesn't resonate with who I am, but it was inherited.
Right. It's like, I agree with you're a product of your environment conversation, but also as adults, it's our responsibility to be educated and to have empathy, to step out of the box and learn from other people's paths, that just because that's your experience doesn't mean it's right.
Well, and giving each other the permission to, like you said, respectfully set that belief outside. And that isn't like a betrayal of where you came from, or, like where those beliefs came from. It just means that you're evolving, like on your own path. And that's totally normal and cool and badass in a lot of respects, to heal past that space. And so I know that that was a big transition for me, where I was like, oh, that's not disrespectful to be like, no, I'm not so into that belief. Yeah. Like, I think I want to create something new.
Mm-hmm.
I love this conversation. Badassladies Club is so founded on this idea that it's not always easy to heal. But that people who take that leap, and are willing to be uncomfortable like that should be celebrated. And so a lot of these conversations sometimes are uncomfortable because we're talking about really delicate things that are, and oftentimes we're the first to point out, like, we are not experts on this stuff. We're trying to figure it out as we go. Yeah. And to create a conversation and dialogue around that is the only way that we know to do that, especially with people who have more experience than we do in some of these spaces on the heels of International Women's Month. And we have joked a lot about, like, we both feel like we're feminists, like at heart in our roots, but that sometimes feminism has kind of like a dirty word,
it's like a dirty F word
with it, and what that means anymore. Like in 2021, what does it even mean to be a feminist? And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I just have a little bit of a broader thought on that, not on specifically feminism, but I have a broader thought on not putting a label on yourself. And I talk to my son a lot about that when he tells me, I like a girl, or I like a boy, or I like a this, or whatever, wherever he is. And he's like labeling. And I said, buddy, the beautiful thing is we all get to love who we want to love, and nobody needs to put a label on anything. And I think that it's the same way that I just don't identify. I feel like I'm totally for women's rights, but I don't identify somebody may say you're feminism, you're feminist. I just don't think about it. And I don't really love labels. I think it puts people in a box. Mm-hmm. And then whatever people's interpretation of that label is how they box them up. And I'm just not a fan of that.
I love the idea of just like stepping out of that altogether and being like, because I know labels labels can be really hurtful, and but also sometimes I'll find myself stepping into them, and that doesn't always have to be your identity just because that's your.
Yeah, because you have a certain belief, it doesn't mean you have to have a label smacked on it.
Right.
Right. Well, and there's so many beautiful examples.
I don't walk around saying I'm gay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I will say, meet my wife, or, whatever the case may be, but I don't even remember the last time I used the term I'm gay. I don't even think that it's a necessary term to. What does that even mean? I mean, people will have their own perception of what it means, but what difference does it make?
Yeah. I mean, it's all a matter of who you're engaging with. Yeah. And in the first place. And I guess that's what I'm picking up on so many of your answers and feedback so far, is like that just doing Keri, mm-hmm. that it is something that's coming from inside you, and you don't take so much stock in what's coming at you, like that.
I don't.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, maybe it's like, my age, maybe it's just the life I've lived, the people I've been around. I think you start narrowing down what's really important. And what's important is heart connections, and what's important are relationships, and what's important is doing things that make you happy and fill you up. And, when you take on a responsibility as a leader, then you need to have joy in leading other people and helping to fill their cup. But like anything other than that, I don't put a whole lot of stock in with labels. And it's very hard even for me when I'm listening to speakers or bloggers or lives or whatever, and people start identifying who they know and what all of their achievements are and all of that. Like, I don't know, what matters to me is here and now, and it just like that stuff just doesn't impress me a lot. I don't throw out my whole litany list of stuff, Mm-hmm. So I just am a little more neutral around that, all of that this day and age.
Well, I love it. And I'm here for it. And I'm totally going to embrace this perspective because I definitely feel the that solid zen, like getting into your flow and doing your thing. And it just looks so happy and comfortable and badass. I'm loving it.
You wear it.
Yeah.
Well,
you wear it well,
you're
lady.
An inspiration.
Wear it well.
I so appreciate you coming and sharing your wisdom here today with us and our listeners and viewers. OG badass Keri Davis. Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you, Keri.
Yeah,
Thank you guys for having me. It was great hanging out with you.
Yeah.
And, my buddy Billy.
we all need to get together soon. Like,
We do.
One day.
We do.
When we
Yeah.
can.
as soon as we're back to
I know.
traveling.
You guys are badass.
Well,
Thank
thanks.
you.
We're
It takes one to know
no
one.
doubt. All right, you guys have a great day. If this episode resonated with you or there's somebody that you think would really benefit from hearing this, then please share it, like it, write us a review. Y'all have a great day and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys.